Hi folks, Vipin here. This is something that's been making big news in the last couple of days. So I decided to give you all a brief insight as to why Airtel here being Bharti, is in fact taking over an unknown company called Loop Mobile. Now let's look at why is it that Airtel wants to buy them. But before that, let's get into the basics of this deal. Now Bharti is buying Loop. Now once bought, Loop ceases to exist as a company. Now what does that mean? Now if I were to consider an acquisition is when one company buys the other and the company that has been bought ceases to exist. Now here Bharti Limited will continue, however Loop Limited will cease to exist. Loop Private Limited in this case. Loop Mobile is a private company, so Loop Mobile Private Company is going to cease to exist. And then you have a merger. Now in a merger, two companies combine together and a new company is formed. In a merger, two companies which are going to combine will form a new one. The companies which are coming together in a merger will cease to exist. Now let's say if this particular transaction was in fact a merger, what would have happened there? Now if it was a merger, Airtel would have combined with Loop, or Bharti here would have combined with Loop, and in turn you would have seen a new company called Bharti Loop Limited. Now that sounds a little dirty according to me, Bharti Loop, but nonetheless here it's not a case of a merger, it is in fact an acquisition. Loop Mobile Private Limited is going to cease to exist and Bharti Airtel Limited is going to continue. So this is what the whole the summary of the deal you could say. Now let's look into the deal a little bit further. Why would Airtel want to buy this in the first place? Now this is a snapshot that I was able to get from economictimes.com. Do visit the website. They have a lot of good articles about the business world, and quite a few of my research data I get it from them. Now looking at the details of the deal, Airtel is in fact buying Loop for rupees 700 crores. Now this comes to about 110 something million dollars. Okay, from an international point of view, the value of this deal is in fact really low. Okay, $110 million is a very small amount of money to pay in order to take over a company. Now, who happens to be the financial advisor for Bharti? The financial advisor here you can see in the next row, Kotak Mahindra Investment Banking. Now, Kotak Group have got several subsidiaries. Kotak Mahindra Bank is the one that is into retail banking. This is into the merchant banking division or the investment banking division. One of the services of an investment bank is to advise companies when they are into these transactions. And the companies which happen to be buying here, of course, Bharti, and below that you can see something called in-house. Now why have they given something called in-house? Loop Mobile is a private limited company. Usually when you take over a private limited company, the details of the deal is usually behind closed doors. I mean, it's very difficult to get data on how much of money the parties have exchanged. 700 crores is just a lump sum amount. I have no idea how much each person who is part of Loop Mobile actually got. Okay, now if I were to consider the general rule that a private limited company has around say 50 people, how many of these 50 people were given were actually part of the overall deal? How much were they divided in the 700 crores, as in who got how much of money? And none of those information is something which is accessible for me so easily. So in-house here, a private limited company they're taking over, they're kind of secretive about the whole thing. Okay, if you remember recently Facebook acquired a private limited company. You should see the reports on what people see. Some person says it was acquired for 50 crores, the person says no, it was acquired for only 4 crores. It's a very vague bit of information you have when private companies are being taken over. They always keep this away from the media, the whole glamour of the acquisition away from the media. The next thing here is the assets which Airtel is going to take over. Airtel is going to get 3.1 million users as soon as they take over Loop. So it's effectively, if you are a Loop mobile user, once the deal is done, you are now an Airtel customer. Then 400 telecom towers. I'll get to details of telecom towers in a few minutes. Optic fibers, electronic equipment, and such as base stations. Base stations is the place where your network is actually managed. So it's a very complicated bit of hardware that they use for all this, for the billing systems, for the connectivity to be made possible, the technicals behind all that. So that's something which Airtel is going to take over as well. The synergy here refers to the overall benefit that they would get by doing this deal. So first thing that you have there is Airtel just bought Loop's 900 megahertz airwaves in Mumbai for 2,815 crore. Okay, now that happens to be a radio wave. Now 900 megahertz radio wave also supports 3G service. So Airtel can use this radio wave and in fact go about providing 3G service as well. Okay, there would be a greater reach for their 3G service. The next thing that you have is deal will put Airtel ahead of Vodafone in Mumbai with 7.1 million users. Now it's always seen that when one company takes over the other, one big reason why they do that is to be ahead of the competition. And as you can see in the last point there, Airtel has in fact taken over the competition and is in fact ahead of Vodafone. So let's review this deal a little further. Is it worth 700 crores? Now I'm not a broker or an analyst. I would just like to look at it from a rational point of view without getting into too much of the numbers. I was looking at an article in Business Standard, a very old article, where it talked about Reliance telecom infrastructure, or the company is known as Reliance Infratel. This is the company that goes about putting up cellular towers. You would have seen them if you are on a high-storied building. A lot of large steel towers which relay the radio waves and make telecom connectivity possible. So how much does a telecom tower cost? Now the current going rate is a minimum amount of 30 lakhs it costs to set up one telecom tower. One telecom tower costs about 30 lakhs to set up. We are not looking at the long-term maintenance cost, but only the fixed capital investment for establishing a telecom tower. Then, how many towers does Loop Telecom have? As per this screenshot, there is a mention that Loop has 400 mobile towers. So I've considered the same value and I've multiplied this. The total cost of the towers alone comes to about 120 crores. So 120 crores is just the worth of the 400 telecom towers that Loop Mobile owns. So just looking at that, you can see how many benefits Airtel is able to get by acquiring the single company. Now Loop Mobile started doing badly after the 2G scam happened and they lost their license. They in fact lost many subscribers when the whole thing happened. So before they could die a slow and a painful death, Airtel has become like their savior and has in fact helped them in this troubled times. So apart from the other things that you can consider, I was able to get only one bit of the calculation, that would be the cost of the telecom towers. I don't know how much the optic fibers are worth or the base stations are worth, but nonetheless let's review this a little bit further. My opinion, 700 crores is a damn good deal is what Airtel is getting. Now the reason for that here is the variable cost is not considered. Airtel is not like, let's put up our own telecom towers and let's see how much it would be beneficial for us in the long term. Loop Mobile has got everything, and all Airtel needs to do is pay and take over them. It's a lot like doing a turnkey project, you could say. The company has built everything. All you need to do is pay and start using it. This is one of the reasons why Airtel has in fact taken over Loop. I am not sure if Loop had other competitors in the deal, because like I said, when you have private companies being taken over, this is always kept behind closed doors. It's very difficult to gather data. I'm guessing even other companies like Vodafone, or even say a company like Reliance, even probably they would have given a try in trying to take over Loop. But I'm guessing that Airtel is the one Loop decided to do business with, and Airtel is in fact here clearly in a win-win situation. They have not considered the maintenance cost to the towers. They have not considered the employees required to be trained to run these towers. None of that has been considered. So it's already there, and they're going to take over this. And here is the other advantage that I mentioned. That would be currently Loop Mobile has got 3.1 million customers. That's a lot. And Airtel is in fact taking over these customers overnight. They are not taking over these customers by repeatedly advertising, telling them please go and purchase our SIM cards, transfer your go about using our network. None of that. It's just that you were formerly a Loop user, and as of tomorrow you happen to be an Airtel user. So 3.1 million customers they've been able to snatch. Literally they've been able to snatch overnight. And another cool benefit here is, by doing so, Airtel has now become a leader in Mumbai. Mumbai happens to be one of the most favorite market for customers. The reason being, you have so many people there. The number of choices that you have for customers, the demography, is really vast if you're a telecom company. The sheer activity of telecom there is incredibly high. I mean, if you remember, Maharashtra has its own telecom company, a state-run telecom company for providing telecom services, MTNL. You can imagine how vast the network must be there. And Mumbai being particularly an industrial hub, that adds to the advantage for Airtel being part of this particular part of the country. So this, according to me, is one of the reasons why Airtel is purely on a win-win situation. The deal, according to me, is a complete win for Airtel. They will be able to get the advantage of Loop Telecom over a course of time. And this is something which I wanted to share with you all. Thank you for your time. Have a nice day, and do subscribe to my videos. Bye.